can I let you in on a little secret? A few months ago I did a deep dive into 28 Days Later, and then I covered 28 Years Later. But many of you have noticed that I quietly skipped the film that came in between, 28 Weeks Later. And I'll be honest, I was reluctant to cover this one because when I first saw it, I didn't like it. To me, it just felt like a much more generic zombie movie compared to the original, which is really unique. But for the sake of completion, I decided to give 28 Weeks a second chance. And actually, it has a lot more going on than I first thought. Perhaps it's time for all of us to reconsider Juan Carlos Fresnadillo's contribution to the franchise. In this video, we will be diving straight into its deeper themes and symbolism. There will be spoilers. Let us begin. In his book Cinemagogue, James Harleman outlines two types of story. There are life-transcendent stories, which grasp at some kind of ultimate hope for their characters. And then there are life-under-the-sun stories, which confront the reality of day-to-day life in a broken world. And 28 Weeks Later is very much a life-under-the-sun story. We find ourselves in the midst of an infected Britain, and three key institutions are offered as possible remedies in the midst of the chaos: family, military, and medicine. But over the course of the film, we watch as they fail, one by one. Britain is proved incapable of holding back the rage virus, and eventually, with the help of its ally, the US, the virus is introduced to mainland Europe. That's how the film ends, not with a sense that things are about to get better, but with a sense that they are about to get much worse. This stands in stark contrast to the ending of the first movie. Or does it? The original ending of 28 Days Later actually featured the death of Jim from that gunshot wound, leaving Selina and Hannah to fend for themselves. But test audiences found it too depressing. So a new ending was shot, the one that most of us know. Jim survives, and the film ends with the trio making first contact with an aeroplane on a reconnaissance trip. The debate still rages to this day about which ending is better. In my video on that movie, I described it as an exploration of loneliness. Jim spends the whole movie calling out the word hello.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Come on, sweetheart, say hello.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello, Jim.
And his hellos remain unanswered right until the very end.
Do you think he saw us this time?
And to me, it feels like a satisfying payoff, the upbeat ending. It doesn't feel tacked on, it comes at a huge cost. And it captures the truth that whatever the world says, there is something more, something worth living for, something worth fighting for.
We're gonna be okay. It's normal.
But there's something powerful about the sad ending as well. It emphasises a different truth. The reality that some battles are simply too big for us. And despite our best efforts, we as the human race cannot bring about deliverance from evil by ourselves. In any case, whether Jim ultimately survives or dies, he is laying down his life for Selina and Hannah, and that's a powerful act of self-sacrifice. Although I bet Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are secretly glad they didn't kill Jim in the end, because he's returning in the next instalment of the 28 Years Later trilogy. All that to say, the original film always had a nihilistic streak to it, which was ultimately softened in the wake of its test screenings. But 28 Weeks Later very much commits to its nihilism. It commits to being an out-and-out tragedy, whether you like it or not. And there's something brave about that. One of the most visually striking moments of the film is its opening. We have a family sheltered in a boarded-up house in the countryside. The flames of candles and a fireplace provide their only light sources. We immediately assume it's nighttime. But then a door opens, and an uninfected boy is let into the house. The sunlight beyond is blinding. And later on, when the infected arrive and start to break in, shafts of sunlight pierce the house like spears. Normally, darkness is where the monsters hide, and they are repelled by the light. But here, it's inverted. The family is huddled in the dark, dingy setting of the house, and the blinding white-hot rays of the sun are what encroach from beyond, accompanied by the infected. And this makes sense. The outside world has been handed over to the dominion of the rage virus, forcing any remaining survivors underground. So to them, sunlight is not this life-giving and hopeful thing. It brings pain and toil. This is a life under the sun movie. And the first key emotional beat of the film is the failure of the father figure, Don. He's trying to flee with his wife, but then she spots the boy hiding upstairs, and she rushes to be with him. This boy is not her son, he's the survivor who showed up at the house, but she treats him as a son, rushing to protect him. At this point, you might expect and hope that Don, the father figure, would follow suit to protect his wife and the boy. But he hesitates, and while he hesitates, the infected burst into the room, and that seems to make his mind up for him. His wife begs him to help, but he quickly decides there is nothing he can do, and he flees from the house. He looks back and sees his wife in peril in the upstairs room. She calls to him, but he keeps running. Now, what's clever about this scene is you completely understand why Don does what he does. It all happens so fast. And when there's such an imminent threat, it's very hard to override your own survival instincts. But at the end of the day, in his cowardice, he decides to save himself rather than the one he loves. Yes, he behaves as many people would, but that doesn't make it right. And his failure will haunt the rest of the movie. 28 weeks later, Don is reunited with his biological children, Tammy and Andy. They're still alive because they were abroad when the outbreak began. And now comes the terrifying question, the question that Don has been dreading.
What happened, Dad? To Mum?
Your mum and I were hiding in a house. It's an old couple that owned it. And we were just trying to stay alive, I suppose. We were doing okay for a while. And then we were attacked. It was really fast, Chased us. Chased your mum. And we were trapped. I seen them biting. I couldn't do anything.
Now, that's not quite true, is it? It's reasonable for him to assume that she got bitten, but he didn't actually see it happen, and he abandoned her before it happened.
I tried to go back. She was already gone.
Again, that's not true, is it? He didn't try to go back.
Was there nothing you could do?
No, there was nothing I could do.
Don is clearly plagued with guilt, and he can't bring himself to tell his children what really happened. It's not just survivors who are being held in District 1, this safe zone on the Isle of Dogs guarded by the US military. It also contains a secret, and soon the truth will burst out.
They use this as a Garden of Eden that they can start again from with a few thousand people and slowly spread out into the country and repopulate the country. So you've got this wonderful visual stuff at the beginning of them. You see them beginning to clean up the mess, that there's this terrible mess that's been left. And then there's optimism that they can start again and get things going again. And of course, because it's this kind of film, it's not quite that easy and things start to go wrong.
How does that happen? Well, Tammy and Andy decide to venture out into the world beyond District 1. They go into the one place they shouldn't go. It's reminiscent of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, eating from the one tree they're supposed to avoid. They go back to their old house, and remarkably, they find their mother. Turns out she has been bitten, her eyes are bloodshot, but she is a rare asymptomatic carrier of the rage virus. Don doesn't realise. He breaks down, begging her for forgiveness. And it's hard to tell what she's thinking. Don kisses her, and he becomes infected through her saliva. It's truly tragic, almost reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet. Just as it looked as though the couple were back together again, there's a misunderstanding, and both their lives are snatched away. The newly infected Don turns on his wife, killing her with savage brutality. It's really bleak. He pushes his thumbs into her eyes. And this is a callback to the first movie. That's how Jim killed one of the soldiers, and as Selena watched, it convinced her that Jim had become infected. But to her great surprise, he wasn't. He was channeling an animalistic brutality for the purposes of overcoming the soldiers and rescuing her, and in that moment it looked like he was infected with the rage virus. But here, Don really is infected. And the fact that he uses that same eyeball squashing technique vindicates Selina's assumption that Jim was infected. This is what pure rage looks like. Then he goes off on a rampage and starts spreading the infection throughout District 1. And I think from a narrative point of view, this is all connected. Don failed his wife and tried to bury the trauma, but now the trauma has resurfaced, like a bomb going off, and through him, chaos is introduced to this supposedly secure zone. The infection spreads like wildfire throughout Zone 1, and the military are given the order to kill everyone they see at ground level, infected or not.
Abandoned selective targeting. All targets are now free.
Confirm order?
Rooftop units, target everyone at ground level. No exceptions. Repeat, no exceptions.
From a military perspective, you can understand the pragmatism of this order. They're trying to protect civilians, and drastic action is required to slow the spread of infection. But the Delta Force sniper Sergeant Doyle refuses the order. He becomes a guardian to Tammy and Andy, and ultimately, he lays down his life for them. Another soldier who chooses to reject his orders to some extent is Flynn, the helicopter pilot. He originally promised to extract Doyle alone, but when only Doyle's companions show up, Tammy and Andy, Flynn reluctantly agrees to take them. Again, it's well-intentioned, but what Flynn doesn't realise is that, like his mother, Andy is an asymptomatic carrier. He has been bitten, but it doesn't show, apart from in his eyes.
Am I one of them?
No.
The eyes are all important in this film. It's reminiscent of the words of Jesus in Matthew 6. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Now, of course, Jesus is talking about more than the physical organ of the eye, but that sense that the eye is the window to the soul, that's drawn out to some extent in this movie. Andy is infected, but the telltale sign in his eyes is mist, and it brings destruction. The third institution, medicine, is represented by Scarlett. When she encounters the miraculous case of the mother, she comes to believe that the key to curing the infection might reside within such asymptomatic carriers. But when things go south and the mother is lost, Scarlett suggests that her children might have inherited the same abilities, and she tells Doyle to protect them at all costs, largely for that reason.
Their mother had very special blood, a natural kind of immunity to the virus. And not all genetic traits are passed on, they can skip a generation or vanish altogether, but
they might have.
it's a possibility. So their lives are far more valuable than mine, or yours.
I got it.
And Scarlett appears to be right. Andy, at least, has inherited the immunity of his mother, and maybe the key to defeating the rage virus itself does indeed reside within his blood. But it is precisely his asymptomism, if that's a word, that makes him so dangerous. It's why he's admitted onto the helicopter without proper precautions, spreading the virus to mainland Europe. So tragically, these three institutions crumble over the course of the film: family, military, medicine. And notice how they even start to undermine each other. There's a disconnect between protecting the family and military pragmatism. The family is looking out for individuals. It's a fatherly instinct that arises within Doyle in protecting those kids. But the military orders are about protecting the people as a whole, whatever it takes. So there's a disconnect between family and military. There's a disconnect between family and medicine, because the desire to reconnect with loved ones can be so intense that it leads to carelessness. And there's a disconnect between the military and medicine, because unlike Scarlett, the military with their blanket orders are unable to recognise the precious potential of these kids in fighting the infection. So it all falls apart because of misunderstandings, miscommunications, split-second decisions. It's also recognisably human.
When he first described how he was going to do the film, it was this idea of this father figure, who the film begins through his eyes, if you like, and then his children who were abroad at the time of the infection are brought back. But it's got this idea of looking at this thing of enormous value to the world is centred in this family, and it's played out through the family drama, if you like.
Especially because a small thing like a family could affect to the whole nation.
The family, the military, and the medicine are gifts. They can all bring great good. But even with our good intentions, we have a remarkable propensity to mess things up. This is the reality of life under the sun. It seems that whatever we try, ultimately we can't save ourselves. And this film provokes in us a longing for salvation. Is there someone from beyond who can save us? And that's the claim of Jesus Christ. So there we go, 28 weeks later. As I said earlier, I was quite disappointed by this film when I first saw it, but after writing this, I'm starting to appreciate it more. That's one of the fun things about doing this channel. It opens my mind. I still maintain that this moment is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I know it's a film, but for the most part, the universe of these movies is very grounded and gritty, whereas this scene feels like it belongs in Fast and Furious. There is no way that a helicopter pilot would risk a stunt like that in a battle. But that's a minor gripe. Overall, I think it's a flawed but interesting film. It's notable that when Alex Garland returned to the franchise as writer for 28 years later, he essentially retconned the events of 28 weeks, deciding that Europe was able to completely push back the infection. He wanted to keep things in Britain, and I think that was a good call for 28 years. Part of what made the original unique was its Britishness. So now, 28 weeks is something of a curiosity within the franchise. Much bigger budget and more star power than the original movie, but it's one that's probably skipped over. Thanks so much for watching. You might be interested in a feature-length, zero-budget alien invasion film I made called Musical Statues. It's rough around the edges, but I tried to incorporate some of the deeper themes I talk about on this channel. You can watch it here for free. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I also composed the soundtrack for it, so if you'd like to listen on Spotify or wherever you get your music, I'll put links in the description below. This video was brought to you by my wonderful patrons. Thanks so much, guys.